I'm Matt Walrath with Beyond the Bottles. I'm here with Adam Glatt from Robert Craig, talking about some of the new, I think almost all new Robert Craig lineup. So Adam, why don't you tell us a little bit about your first wine here?
The first wine that we tasted a few moments ago is the 2013 Gaps Crown Chardonnay. Very, very famous vineyard, made famous by Costa Brown. The Gaps Crown vineyard is always known for very steely wines with a lot of white mineral and very high acidity to them. A little bit of kind of early season peach and white lotus, very aromatic. We started making this style of Chardonnay back in 2001 so that Bob Craig himself could have a white wine that he could pair with oysters. And Bob always believed that something as subtle as an oyster required something that was very light, very feminine, high acid, very lean and mineral driven. And so we've constantly looked outside of Napa for the perfect vineyard. This is our first release of the Gaps Crown. We were making a different Chardonnay up until this point in time, but we're big believers that it is the vineyard that makes the wine and the winemaker is merely a shepherd. And so to make this style of Chardonnay, we needed this style of vineyard. Older vines, lower yield, lower pH, higher acid, and a lot, as I mentioned, of mineral and aromatics behind it. We make about 250 cases a year, so it's a very small production Chardonnay. And I'm sure when you get the chance to taste it, you will fall in love with it like we did.
Yeah, I've always loved this wine too. It's been a wine for me that's, like Adam said, bright acid. It drinks more like a white Burgundy or a Sauvignon Blanc. It's not your big, flabby, over-oaked, over-mallowed, a lot of butter type of Chardonnay. So it kind of almost can change the mind of what people think of Chardonnay.
There's zero malolactic to it, 20% Surly, so we were gearing it to not be, as Matt was just saying, big and flabby and oaky and butter and popcorn in style, but very much kind of a Burgundian take on California Chardonnay.
I've always loved too about Robert Craig as a brand. A lot of people are very familiar with Affinity. Affinity is in restaurants by the bottle. It's a lot of by the glass in California, and it's in a fair amount of higher end retailers. But these two other wines, the Zinfandel, which we'll talk about in a moment, and the Chardonnay, for the most part available at the winery, to your club, and in restaurants by the bottle. Like that's it. People don't really get a chance to purchase it outside of that, and certainly not a chance to try it. So it's one I've been very honored to have it included in the Beyond the Bottles program, and
I'd be very happy to share it with you. Cheers. So Robert Craig Winery has been around since 1992, and we are famous for production of high elevation, small production mountain Cabernets, focusing on Mount George, Mount Veeder, Spring Mountain, Diamond Mountain, and the tiara of Napa Valley where our winery is located, Howell Mountain. Our productions range from a few thousand cases to a few hundred cases. These mountain vineyards range from 600 to 800 feet elevation all the way up to our winery at 2,400 feet elevation on the summit of Howell Mountain. But Bob actually has a legacy that extends far beyond and far back into older Napa Valley, all the way back into the late 1970s, when he bought a parcel of land in what is now Mount Veeder. And about a year and a half after Bob bought this parcel and planted it, it was bought by Donald Hess, and the Hess Collection was born from it. Bob Craig came on as the COO of the Hess Collection for about a decade, and in his tenure with the Hess Collection, he was also on the side consulting upon and directly planting what exists today as some of the most famous mountain vineyards throughout the county. And so in the early 90s, when Bob decided it was time to break ties with Hess and start his own winery, he had a very easy time of calling up the folks for whom he had planted vineyards and planting directly some for folks such as Robin Williams himself, and using those kind of a priori very sought after properties to be the base lots for what we produce today. So this Affinity vineyard is in the Mount George foothills. Well, go back. So a little bit more than half of our overall production is one wine and one wine alone, and that is our Affinity Cabernet. And we've been making Affinity since 1992. It's a 5-varietal Bordelaise blend, but the Cabernet base is always 76 to 84%. So it is a true Napa Valley Cabernet, but has a 5-varietal blend behind it.
One of the things I just wanted to add too, one of the reasons I've always loved this wine is for the money. Cabernet, it's $55 a bottle. It's hard to find a better Cabernet for the price. One that's scored very consistently well. 17 of the last, I think with this, the 12 vintage,
This is our 18th vintage
yes.
now, 90 points or above, Parker Spectator, and that is a pedigree that very few wines, especially very few wines at this price point, can claim. It's a testament to what we've been doing from then until now.
And you just got 92 points on this one, is that right?
This was
Parker?
just scored by the Wine Advocate, 92 points. We will be getting our Galoni review back any day. So we're very, very happy with where we're at the moment. And as a vintage 2012, very sought after, very velveteen, very plush. There's a lot of dark fruit behind it with an ageability of 20 to 25 years. But I imagine most of you will be drinking this within about 3 hours of receiving your shipment.
All right, Adam, so here we are with the 2012 Howell Mountain Robert Craig Zin. Now, as I understand this wine comes from one of the most famous vineyards for Zinfandel in the country.
Absolutely. The Black Sears Vineyard is where this fruit is being sourced from, and was made famous by Turley for many, many years. The vineyard is 2,500 feet in elevation, which is the absolute summit, the pinnacle of Howell Mountain, which also happens to be a dormant volcano, so no one's really quite sure how at 2,500 feet in elevation this vineyard can be hand-picked, head-trained, most importantly, dry farmed. So down in Lodi, you can get 7 to 12 tons an acre of Zinfandel, and we're lucky to get 1/4 of 1 ton per acre off of this property. The vines range from 44 to 66 years of age, but it really is just an ethereal style of Zinfandel. Base notes of pepper and game and char and smoke. There is the classic Zinfandel jam, but unlike its kind of common competitors right now, it's not reduced and caramelized. It's very fresh strawberry instead of macerated black fruit. So this is a very unique feminine style of Zinfandel that we produce. We've been making this since 2001, and we just kind of continue to work on the perfection of the style from then until now. We bring the fruit in about 3 weeks earlier than anybody else off of the property. We use an optical sorter to take it down to the berry, and then we treat it like a Pinot Noir, thus the Burgundian-shaped bottle. Open top fermentation and hand punch downs are the tutelage that this wine will experience while it's progressing through its aging profile. But as I mentioned, it's all about acid, bright berry notes, pepper, game, spice. Very unique style, very small production, and something that we're very, very happy to share with Matt, because very few ever get to experience a wine of this caliber in this unique essence.